Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Hey man, how's it going?
Brother, good. No real complaints.
And
So,
I'm
up and ready to get at it.
Yeah, me too. This has been a long time coming. No
Definitely.
bullshit short-term rental podcast. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. This is fun.
It's so what do you think about it? I mean, why our podcast and why are people going to want to listen to this? You know, what's different?
I think our idea is, in bringing news and culture to the industry. Like, there are a lot of podcasts out there that are excellent, right? And, we're not trying to be the podcast that's going to tell you how to be the next property manager or industry professional. I think what we would like to do with this podcast and what we're going to do is, highlight the news and what's going on in the culture. Like who are the people in the industry? What are they doing? What do they think about what's going on? And who we are, constantly becoming and forming as an industry. And I think there's that. We're gonna talk about the news. We're gonna bring the people in who are part of the news, and have great conversations with great people like you and I always do.
No, I'm so excited about it. It's you said it perfectly. There's a lot of people that have been doing podcasts in our industries very, very well for a very long time, and our goal definitely is not to come in and compete and or replace. This is different. This is a new, fresh look, fresh take on it. We say it's an unfiltered look, and that's the whole goal. It's really, I think it's going to be refreshing for our audience to go ahead and really, truly, we're not here to tell someone how, the best cleaning practices or the best way to go ahead and set up your website. I mean, that's all very important, but there's a lot of people that are doing a really good job with that, and that's not our space.
Right. I agree. Completely agree with that. So yeah, no, this is exciting, man. We're ready to dig into this.
So, I mean, the cool thing, and for everyone here that's listening to our first podcast here, for episode 1 here, what's important for you to know is what we're doing, and Mateo hit it, perfectly. This is top news stories. This is current events. This is a look at the culture of our industry, and we'll hit on that, and then we're going to come into, maybe we'll bring a guest on, maybe we won't. We're going to try to get lots of guests on. We got a lot of people already queued up, ready to go, that want to come in and be on this podcast. I'm so excited to go ahead and introduce our first guest, in these upcoming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely different. If today was our first, official podcast, and we're not talking about, what the podcast is going to be, it's, we'd be getting into top stories right now. What are the top stories? And so if today was the official kickoff, we'd be talking about, Airbnb, the, new summer regulations, 1 day rental only on, July 1st, that kind of stuff. We talk about city regs, and I think we're going to talk about some of that today as well. But that's kind of how the flow is going to go. What are your thoughts, man?
I think you hit the nail on the head. We want to talk about the current and most relevant events of the day, and just share perspective, and bring guests on that are industry folks, and get their perspective too. Because we are a large, diverse body with lots of views, and we want to be able to get that feedback and get that understanding, because as we are a growing industry that continues to grow, and change, and the regulatory issues, and what one hand does to the other hand, like all of these things affect massive amounts of our industry and how they operate and live. And so we want to be a platform to discuss, and share that information, and have people share their points of view, and continue to do so for a long while. So
another thing that is definitely going to be a differentiator for the No BS podcast here, is that our scope is global. We're not looking at, we named it and we called it the No BS short-term rental podcast for a reason, because we have a global approach to it. We're not just looking at the vacation rental industry. We're going to go ahead and we're going to touch on the urban. We're going to touch on the vacation destinations. We're going to touch on the European and the fully global look on this. And when we don't have the knowledge and the input to go ahead and speak eloquently on it, we're going to bring in professionals that can. And so if it's a top story, we're going to touch on it. It's important. We're going to go ahead and touch on it. If it's happening now, we're going to go ahead and touch on it. And so that's where this is super important. And this is something also that it's going to be easily digestible. The goal for this is to not be so time consuming for you all. We're going to try our hardest to keep it at under a half hour. Is it always going to be under a half hour? No. Sometimes we're going to get heated, we're going to get into it, and it's going to just flow, and it's going to be what it is. But we're super stoked to bring this to you.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And so you will not get a weekly editorial from me that's lengthy and in line and, and out of pocket. Brevity, which I don't know if I've ever been necessarily associated with, is what we're going for in this space. But quality, too. We want to have quality conversations. We're going to have quality guests. And we're going to, reach out to the audience, too, to ensure that, we are in line with providing, content that the industry, can digest and can think. The goal here is to have engaging conversations with great people that spur thought. And want people to engage and see us as a source of not just news and in the true sense of news, reporting the happenings of what is going on, right? But we want to also give you our take and the take of other professionals in the industry as to those current events and what's going on as well. And so this isn't just John and I, this is an industry thing. And we're going to continue to ensure that we represent the industry and represent the industry well.
Well, speaking of just John and I, or Mateo and I, for that matter, and this isn't something we decided last week we want to go ahead and do. Right. This has been truly, I think it was November, December last year, we really started kind of going back and forth. Like, we want to go ahead and put something out. We want to do something. We don't want to wait forever to do it because we're pretty excited about it. But at the same time, timing and Q1 and different things, it's no secret. I have my own job. Mateo has his own job in the industry. This is 100% unassociated with either one of those. This is an equal look, an unbiased view, and take on the industry. But we've been working behind the scenes to get this kicked off for months now. I mean, truly, I think we really wanted to, like, all right, we got so excited. We're like, we're going to put our first one out in January. Well, that didn't happen, right. But I think this is better.
Definitely wanted to ensure that we could put out, quality product. And I think that's going to be the focus of what we're doing. We want to make sure that this is quality and something that enriches the industry for sure.
And with that, this is a learning process for us too. So these first few episodes might be not as quality as what it's going to go to. This is a learning process for us. We're new to the whole podcast scene, not new to the scene, new for producing our own podcast and putting it out. We've been obviously listening to podcasts for years. I'm doing my own vlogs. I'm doing different things like that, but this is definitely very different. And it's very exciting.
Yeah. So love it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So with that, let's, you're in the midst of, let's talk about some of these regulatory issues a little bit since we're here. In the news, I think just yesterday, the mayor of San Diego went ahead, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking on this correctly. So long story short, a big ordinance came out saying that the amount of homes in San Diego that could be short-term rentals were greatly reduced. I think it's reducing the number from 14,700 to 5,400 in the city. I mean, it's a huge reduction. That's a 2/3 reduction of what is, so they didn't ban it completely,
Right.
but so there's a lot of people that are happy. There's a lot of people that, there was 100% banned. There's a lot of people that are up in arms. And a similar thing is going on in Atlanta, where Mateo's from. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So speaking about it, Atlanta was facing a ban, like a flat out ban. And so, there was a group of people who have been working really hard within the city. Shout out to Rent Responsibly, who, full candor, have been working with to actually ensure that, this ban did not take place. Partners like Airbnb, who are very integral in ensuring that a ban didn't take place. And we're able to pass legislation that ensured that there wouldn't be a ban in the city. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to continue to get better? Yes. Why? Because we have a diligent team that's in there working to ensure that everyone's rights are heard and that we can get to a space that's good for all within the market. But yes, it is better than a ban. The process is not easy. Like, this is brutal. Like, it's war, and seeing it, from that vantage point, is gives you a different perspective, right? We all talk about the regulatory and what that means, and we all, depending on where we're at, managers, industry vendors, and others, all have our own kind of insight into what we want and don't want. But it's not an easy fix, and I would say, in light of the pandemic, a city like Atlanta went through a lot of issues that really forced the regulatory climate to have to be enacted, because Atlanta was completely unregulated. But Atlanta is a city that was open during COVID, just being free. And so, a lot of people were coming to the city from other places and treating Atlanta like it was free-for-all land. And so, like, that actually had a major effect on, we're in the middle of trying to pass this legislation, that actually had a major effect on the views of short-term rentals, throughout the city, especially with demographics that were already struggling with, do they want this in their neighborhood, party houses, things of that nature, all of these things that were going on. But you're dealing with an entity that didn't know how to handle any of that. And so the group that put this together was able to push something through successfully. But we still have a ways to go to ensure that it's a strong bail for all.
I mean, the interesting thing is, I could put myself, being someone in the industry, I can see both sides of it. I could put myself as a homeowner. I live in the city. I have a home in the city, and I could put myself in the position where I could think of what happened. What would it be like if next door to me was a constant turnaround, a constant change. I've owned this home for, say 20 years. I haven't owned this home for 20 years, but you could see, you can put yourself in their shoes, and you can feel and empathize for them. At the same time, I can also see, from I say our side, but from the industry side, and from the property managers and the homeowners that are trying to go ahead and rent these homes out for, income reasons, for whatever reasons they're trying to go ahead and do it, that, why it is, could feel suffocating with these regulations. Do you know, Mateo, how this, the new, not the ban, but the new ordinance is affecting transient occupancy tax in Atlanta? Do you know have they done any?
They're going to pay. Yeah, no, they're going to pay that tax. It's going to be interesting, and I don't think that was necessarily the issue around this.
No, not are they going to pay it, but are, for example, in the San Diego case, the eliminating 2/3 of the available rental income that is coming in is actually going to drop it from 7.3 million to 4.4 million in transient occupancy tax that the city is going to make. And the city in San Diego was willing to take that hit. And I mean, truly, it was passed. I was just reading it. It was passed 8-1 earlier this month.
And San Diego is a different category in that space, right? It's a different vacation destination, but it's also a heavy transient like location because of the military that's there, all the contract, and so with at ease, we're looking at this like this is crazy because it's not just going to affect the vacation side of the business; it's also going to affect military families and their ability to have places to stay, that are not hotels, while they're in transition, and which a lot of them are coming in and out of there. People are moving in and out of San Diego all the time. Your base housing isn't ready. Where do you stay? What
Right.
can you do? And now if you cut down on the amount of short-term rentals, who are you impacting? So again, but it's extremely complex. I get it. I'm with you on the other side of it. I think that's why the responsible platform has to be the mantra that everyone gets behind, because, this segment is, our communities are really part of having to define what this is going to be.
Right.
And, if people are making these decisions based off something they heard or a party house they saw or some unregulated, unmanaged, Airbnb that's been hustled down the street versus, 2 blocks away where there's a professionally properly managed property that they didn't even know was a short-term rental, right?
Right. And that's exactly what I want to say. There's a huge difference between a professionally managed short-term rentals and vacation homes as opposed to just, just someone that's running an Airbnb. Not to say that person that's running an Airbnb or 3 or 4 Airbnbs isn't running it professionally as well. Like, I want to make sure that I'm very clear on that. But overall, if you're going to look at the numbers, you look at the professionally managed numbers as opposed to individual managed numbers, mm-hmm. It's my assumption, and I'd like some better statistics on it, would be that the professionally managed overwhelmingly is doing things more in line with what's best for
no, absolutely. I think you're 100% correct on that. And, but that's, our industry is segmented. We're not monolithic, right? We're segmented. You have hosts, right? There's some excellent hosts that don't want to be property managers, but, have, a couple short-term rentals and they manage them greatly. We have some managers that are not great managers, right? They're not the best managers. Just because you have, X number of properties doesn't qualify you as a great manager, right?
100%.
And so it's having that conversation and dialogue. But I think, one of the things I love with working, about rent responsibly is a third dynamic is how do you engage the community, right? As well, to have that conversation, because what we're really talking about as well is what do we want our communities to look like, right? Yes, we are in places where people live. And how do you build that, that peace within the neighborhood so that people, their lives aren't disturbed within that space, but also people who own homes and have the right to do these things have the ability to do it and do it well. That's the focus, right? How do we bring these components together to work well? And again, are you going to please everybody all the time? No. But can you bring a standard that allows this to be manageable and to be livable? Absolutely. But it starts with having that dialogue and taking all of the misinformation out, right?
What? There's misinformation?
Right. And so part of that and people's experiences, a lot of people don't, unless they've gone on vacation, they've gone to vacations and they've been in managed properties and probably haven't even thought about it, right? And thought about, well, hey, that's probably the same thing with that house that I just found out was a short-term rental in my neighborhood that's professionally managed that I never knew about and heard about, right? Well, There's a reason. There was a professional in that space. And not to say that things don't happen, right? Because things always happen in business, but how it's handled, how it's managed, the relationship, all of these things are key factors and conversations that need to be had at every level, at the local level, at the state level, at large, because that's where I think the change and the acceptance is going to come in once we're able to really have those conversations as neighbors, as business owners, and as operators.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect transition to, why the No BS Short-Term Rental podcast is an important podcast. It's why we're going to make a difference. We're not, there's no fluff. We're not sitting here, just, pushing some sort of one agenda or another. There's zero agenda other than in being true to the people, and the people are all sides of this, from the traveler to the professionally managed to the individually managed to the workers that work in the industry to the goal of this podcast is to be all inclusive, really focus on the current news, really focus on the culture. And we're so stoked to be bringing this to you. I mean, as often as we can. We have an idea in our head at how often we want to go ahead and push this out. We have to see really how how feasible it is with everything that's going on for us right now. So, I think it's time for us to wrap this up and really kind of, why Mateo, why are you excited outside of everything we said? Why you and me, first of all,
yeah,
and why specifically now, and why this podcast?
So I think you and me, we've since we met on the Carney circuit a long time ago. I think we've been able to see a lot, and you and I have always had a great kind of relationship to talk about things that just weren't talked about in the industry, from a cultural standpoint, from a DEI standpoint. We would always talk about like these things in the industry that nobody else was talking about. And then you were like, "Hey man, we should put this into a podcast." And I was like, "I'm not really with the bullshit." And you're like, "Well, there we go, the no BS, no BS podcast." And so I think the industry needs this. I think hearing, diverse voices and hearing the other side, our goal isn't, to be mainstream in this space. Our goal is to have real conversations about real events in the industry with people in the industry and get that impact. And I think we're the right ones to do that.
I'm ready to bring the no bullshit.
Good.
All right, man. All right. Until next week, thank you so much. Join us for or next week or whenever that is. Let me clarify that. For now, we'll button this up as time goes on. Until next time, this is John and Mateo with the No Bullshit Short-Term Rental Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Peace.